You've probably already performed a full diagnostic on whether this video is worth the next 10 minutes of your life. And now you're analyzing the fact that you're analyzing it. If you're currently caught in a loop of wondering whether you should have kept scrolling, or if this intro is a targeted attack on your specific personality, welcome. You are exactly where you need to be. Most people dismiss overthinking as a simple nervous habit, like biting your nails or tapping your foot. But that pedestrian framing completely misses the high-level neurobiological warfare happening inside your skull. Society tells you that you just worry too much, but the truth is far more provocative. Your brain isn't misfiring. It's running an incredibly sophisticated, albeit exhausting, survival algorithm that refuses to let you be average. While the masses are busy living on autopilot, your mind is busy simulating every possible reality and replaying every social interaction since the 3rd grade and trying to solve a future that hasn't even happened yet. Your overthinking isn't a sign of weakness or a broken mind. It is the byproduct of a high-resolution consciousness that lacks a biological off switch. Today, we are dissecting the clinical machinery of the infinite loop, the specific neural architecture of people who cannot stop the gears from turning. We are going to explore the loud volume of your default mode network, the psychological trap of emotional amber, and why trying to just stop worrying is neurologically equivalent to putting out a fire with high-octane gasoline. To understand why your mind won't shut up, we have to look at a specific internal circuit that researchers call the default mode network, or the DMN. This is the network that fires up the exact moment you stop focusing on the outside world. It's responsible for introspection, replaying the past and imagining the future. In a standard issue brain, the DMN is like a background hum, but in your brain, it is a deafening roar that drowns out the present moment. Your DMN is constantly performing a security audit of your life, looking for vulnerabilities in your relationships, your career, and your social standing. But the real problem isn't just that the network is loud, it's that it is confused thinking with protecting. There is a critical clinical difference between productive reflection, where you actually arrive at a conclusion, and what psychologist Susan Nolen-Hoeksema famously called rumination. Rumination is the act of cycling through the same catastrophic thoughts repeatedly without ever reaching a resolution or a save point. You aren't problem-solving, you are simply rehearsing the tragedy over and over again in slightly different costumes. Nolen-Hoeksema's research found that this process doesn't actually help you move on. It preserves negative emotion like amber, keeping the pain fresh and viable for decades. The cruel irony is that you keep thinking because some deep primal part of you believes that if you just think long and hard enough, you'll eventually find the secret code that makes everything okay. You won't find it at 2 a.m., but your brain will sacrifice your sleep, your health, and your sanity just to keep searching. This behavior often has deep environmental roots in a childhood where uncertainty was a genuine threat to your safety. If you grew up in a household where you had to read the room to stay safe, or where a parent's mood was a volatile variable, your brain learned that overthinking was a survival skill. The tragedy is that you are still running that high-level security software in situations where the threat has been gone for years. Your brain doesn't distinguish between a life-altering crisis and a slightly ambiguous facial expression from a coworker in a Zoom meeting. To your amygdala, a perceived social rejection triggers the same cortisol dump as a physical predator. And now you're building a case file of evidence for a crime that hasn't been committed. This leads us to a specific localized form of torture, the social simulation loop. You aren't just thinking about yourself, you are constantly running hundreds of simulations of how other people perceive you. You draft and redraft text messages not because you can't spell, but because you are trying to account for every possible way the recipient might misinterpret your tone. Think about the last time you had to cancel plans. A normal person types a 5-word apology and hits send in 9 seconds without a second thought. But you spend 25 minutes agonizing over the word sorry, wondering if it sounds too guilty or not guilty enough. This isn't just vanity, it is a form of deep hyper-empathy that has been hijacked by a lack of internal boundaries. The most maddening part is that you extend a mountain of compassion to everyone else while holding yourself to a standard of perfection that no human could ever meet. You will spend an hour convincing a friend that they aren't a burden, but you'll lie awake for 3 hours convincing yourself that you are. This cognitive dissonance is a byproduct of the white bear experiment, conducted by psychologist Daniel Wegner. Wegner discovered the ironic process theory. The more you try to suppress a thought, the more powerful and frequent it becomes. When you tell yourself to just stop overthinking, you are neurologically setting yourself up for a catastrophic rebound. The act of trying to push the thought away actually labels it as important in your brain, causing the mind to check back on it every 5 seconds to see if it's still there. This is why relaxing feels like a trap for you, because stillness removes the one thing that keeps the thoughts at bay: distraction. The moment you sit down to rest, the backlog of unprocessed anxieties floods your consciousness, making you stay busy just to survive the volume. You aren't a workaholic or a hustler. You are just someone using activity as a volume dial to drown out your own internal narrator. But here's the last realist insight. Your overthinking is rarely random noise. If you look closely, your brain only spirals about the things you actually value. It maps perfectly onto what you are afraid of losing. Your anxiety is just your values communicating with you in the most dysfunctional, aggressive way imaginable. It knows you care about being seen as kind or competent or loyal, and it uses those values as leverage to keep the loop running. Understanding the why won't automatically make the thoughts stop, and frankly, they probably never will. The goal isn't a quiet mind. That's a marketing myth sold by people who want to sell you a meditation app. The real goal is to develop a more honest, cynical relationship with the thoughts you do have. It's the ability to look at a 2 a.m. spiral and say, I see you. I know you're trying to protect a version of me that doesn't exist anymore. And I'm not going to give you my night. You have to realize that the danger your brain is scanning for dissolved a long time ago. What's left is just a very well-practiced high-level habit of a mind that's too fast for its own good. Stop trying to fix your overthinking as if it's a bug. Start treating it as a feature that needs better management. The world is designed for people who don't think enough, for people who act on impulse and ignore the consequences. But you have the rare, albeit painful, gift of seeing the patterns before they even form. Reclaim that energy from the loops and start using it for the things that actually deserve your focus. The default mode doesn't have to be your prison. It can be your laboratory, provided you stop letting the security guards run the experiments. If this deep dive into the infinite loop felt like someone finally read your mental case file, it's because you've been looking for the truth in a world that only wants to give you platitudes. Well, subscribe and hit the bell, because the world is only going to get louder, and you're going to need to know how to navigate the static. Click the next video to see why your dark humor is actually a sophisticated psychological armor. We'll see you in the next one.